εκδήλωσή μας.
We also have a friend here who is also interested in science fiction, Akis Kapranos, who is fallen ill, and so I may say a few things that he would have said as well. So, well, our festivals from the beginning, we have always included fantasy, science fiction, horror films, I mean, what we call the cinema of fantasy. And because we are interested that it's part of the history of cinema, because in the past time, I mean, in the 50s and 60s, and even later, most of the critics, they treated this kind of films as a second sort of type. They were interested in serious movies, and if there was a fantasy film, if it was even westerns, musicals, were supposed to be second-rate type of films. I mean, I remember when John Ford's film, The Searchers, which is supposed to be one of the greatest westerns, the critics either they didn't write anything about it or a few lines saying another film by John Wayne. So, but things have changed since then. And now everybody accepts that there are other genres of films. No, it's not only the political and the social, but the various kinds of cinema. So in our festival, as I said from the beginning, we had films, horror films, we had films, special tributes to Terence Fisher, to Fritz Lang, so to selecting the films that he made regarding this type of films. We had Christopher Lee who came, and we have the horror films that he made. We had films of the Italian, afterwards we had Roger Corman, and we had the Italian fantasy films, and we had special programs, How is the Future? Is there a future for us was the title. And we had also how do we travel into space, and trying to include films from all the periods. And you know, I mean, when the film started, even Méliès made the first film, Trip to the Moon, which was the first maybe fantasy film. And since then we had, during the silent era, we had Metropolis and The Woman on the Moon, and we had Aelita from Russia, and we had later on from France, Chris Marquet, who made films. And then later, of course, there was a big bang of fantasy films in the 50s during the Cold War, and films like Forbidden Planet and They Pay the Earth to Steal, which was considered to be the most serious film because it talked about what was happening on Earth with the danger of having a world war, and someone coming from space to inform us and prepare us that we don't go on because we are going to intervene. We are waiting for the extraterrestrials to come and save us and make us more logical people and stop thinking about starting a new world war. And a lot of films which were famous and did very well with the public as well. And then we had more recent, more, let's say, again, serious fantasy films. We had Solaris from Russia. We had films from Japan, from France, England, from everywhere. I mean, so the fantasy films have been very popular also. So this has helped filmmakers to make films and also talk through films, especially through films about space, about extraterrestrials, to put problems that are for today. I mean, problems that regard our generation, because the future is, you know, it's next day. I mean, with all this, what that is happening and the climate and the fear again, now we're coming back to a kind of Cold War with what's happening in the Middle East and in Ukraine. So it is necessary. They are really films that, as I said, they make us think about problems of today, that we see them through the future. And it's glad that, of course, the films increase. I mean, the American films have always been distributed because they had no problems. But new films by new directors, and I said from countries outside America, if they are not, if they are independent, they very seldom find a distributor which is a problem also with the other kinds of films, and the European films. It was another thing that we discussed in the other colloque we had the other day. I mean, what's happening with films from other countries, sometimes smaller countries. I mean, Czechoslovakia has made films about the future, even from Serbia and smaller countries. There are good films that one should screen. But what's going to happen? Are they going to be screened only for the festivals? Everybody's waiting for a festival just to bring out some of those films that they wouldn't see elsewhere. So we're having this colloque today to discuss and see what is the future of these films and if there is a possibility to extend the distribution and have the films in Greece and also in Italy, Germany, whatever. I mean, we don't have representatives from all over countries, but we can hear what our guests here, and I thank them all for coming and taking part, and also we thank IANOS for letting us have the place to do it here. And I hope that it gives some things for thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ninos. Always we have lessons from you for many things. So, what's so special about fantasy films that they attract a large part of the audience, especially young people? What is different about distributing such kind of film? Does Europe, like the rest of the West, have the same standards of acceptance of these films? So thank you for being with us today in what I hope will be an interesting meeting. Our theme for this conference is fantasy cinema and its distribution in Europe today. Let us clarify that when we talk about fantasy cinema, we are referring to a wide category of films, such as thrillers, horror, science fiction, just plain fantasy, and many subcategories. Also a combination of subgenres. These films are not only the high-budget Hollywood films, but also films that either from Asia or in Europe, which is our current concern, rely on other narrative tools than the plethora of so-called effect movies. So the main question is, in the age of green box, how do this film reach to European audience? We have with us today Italian film producer Loris Kersi. Mr. Kersi is perhaps one of the only producers of fantasy films that has produced in almost in all the Balkan countries at least one horror film. We have Mr. Giorgio Bruno, director and producer of fantasy films from Italy. Despite his young age, has an important career. And of course, last but not least, Mrs. Irini Souganidou, one of the most leading personalities in our film industry, in the field of distribution and lately in production, head of Feel Good Entertainment. So I'm giving ladies first. I'm giving the microphone to Mrs. Souganidou.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. So I usually have the, let's say, most annoying role because distributors have always the problem in A, selecting and B, distributing a film. And I must say that our job is not easy and sometimes it is a bit misunderstood. The theatrical environment nowadays, especially after COVID, has completely turned upside down in all nations, in US and Europe, and in Greece especially. There's a huge shift to streaming. People haven't yet returned into the cinemas, and we are being challenged to see how we can bring them back. Right now, talking about the Greek numbers, because I'm going to have a more, let's say, quantitative approach in my in my speech. So in Greece, we used to do before COVID something like 10 million admissions per year. We've been struggling since then to reach the 7.5 million admissions, 8 million admissions. We are stuck there, and it doesn't seem easy for us to be able to reach again this 10 million cap that we used to have before. This loss of audience is unfortunately unfortunately, it affects mainly the independent and the Greek films, not the US ones. Still, the major studios, the major Hollywood studios, they do something like 75 to 80% out of the total admissions, and there's just a mere 20% that we are trying to achieve all other films from all other regions. As far as the number of films being released, this is exactly the opposite. I mean, if the Hollywood studios are achieving this 80% of the admissions, they release only the 20% of films. On the European and Greek films, is the other way around. We are releasing 80% out of the total number of films that Greece is releasing, but are only achieving a 20% of the box office. So out of the something less than 300 films that are being released in Greece on an annual basis, 80% out of them are coming from the independent and the Greek arena. Now, going into the fantasy films, this is a very wide genre, as Vasilis mentioned. So, indeed, we may see there huge blockbusters from the major Hollywood studios, or the Marvel films, or the DC environment, comics coming in. So these huge US-driven fantasy films, they are doing extremely well. They're doing, out of the total of, let's say, fantasy films admissions, these two categories almost make 80%. So there's again here just a 20, 25, 30% most max area for other fantasy films coming from Europe or other territories and other countries. Having done a research, the choice and the inclination of young people and general audience to watch films that have something to do with fantasy is really shown. I mean, even the researches, we see that around 30% of Greek people, have fantasy as one of their main genre categories that they wish to go and see, with comedy being number one on their choices. This is, we all understand the reason behind it, because fantasy films and all its sub-categories, they help us, live our current lives, and they really attract our imagination, and they can make us dream and believe that whatever they see on screen is something that is not an everyday dull story. So the creativity around the fantasy films genre is something that definitely attracts the younger audience, and it's something that we've seen delivering in all ages, not only before COVID, but after COVID as well. Still, there is a very, very strong interest towards that. The problem with the distribution of European fantasy films, it doesn't differ from the problem of distributing European films in general. It's and Greek films as well. There is a huge difference between the budget and the promotional and marketing tools that the USA Hollywood studios have in their hands compared to what a European good production may have, even if we're talking about a big and solid European fantasy film that has managed to perform satisfactorily in the theaters. So for us, for a distributor that is trying to find a balance, there's no magic recipe here. I usually say, and Feelgood is one of the distributors that, although we represent in Greece a lot of the Hollywood studios, we represent Sony, Disney, Fox, and Paramount, so we are a big player there. But we're very active in acquisitions and co-productions of independent and Greek films. And we, most of the time, try to use the leverage that the studio titles are giving us in order to support these more sensitive, let's say, films coming out from Europe or other regions of the world, not US. Distribution-wise, this leverage means that we are, pushing our exhibitors to have a better placement on the number of screens that they will give to us for a fantasy film that is not a US one. So we usually say, even if they're not much interested in it, that, okay, please give me the screens and I will make sure that you're included in the next big blockbuster that I am handling. So we are actually using on sales this kind of, let's say, support. Marketing-wise, it's the same. Because of the major Hollywood studios, we have some promotional partnerships, both with various marketing companies and heavy advertisers, but with the media as well. So we are asking and using our leverage there as well to make sure that we have a decent marketing campaign that will somehow try to spread out the word that these films are out there. It's not easy. There's a huge clutter of information. There's a huge competition nowadays with each small screen that takes time from our potential viewers, especially young people. They're on their phones, they're on their iPads. They don't seem to be that interested in the scale of the large screen. They will easily say, yeah, I saw Avatar, it was great, you know. Even a huge production that needs the scope, needs the big screen, the young audience seems to not give that much of attention. But of course there are exceptions, and we are fighting to preserve this magic of the big screen and maintain the audience and not become a platform that is gradually, slowly dying. We are big believers in theatrical, and we've seen the cinema being affected in the past in many ways, but cinema has managed to survive, and we strongly believe that we will survive again. The private TV stations, the DVD and the video cassette, the piracy were main problems in the past, and now streamers is a problem for the theatrical attendance. But at the same time, because you cannot ignore what is happening, you cannot just say that streamers are the bad guys. For the distribution of European films and fantasy films, streamers could be an option. Maybe some films may not find their way into theaters, but they will find a way into a film festival. Film festival is an alternative circuit for sure that grants some sort of revenue for the producers. By all means, we need to find innovative distribution models and break, let's say, the status quo. Sometimes for a more European film, you may need the streamer to be on board and help you and advertise the release of the film, even if you have to sacrifice, let's say, the window and make it available quite sooner than later compared to the theatrical release. In the past, when the film was released theatrically, we had at least a 3-month window to be able to exploit it in the screens and then watch it on a DVD or on a pay TV broadcaster. Now, this window has shrunk from day to date or a week to 1 month, 40 days the most. So it has become, theatrically speaking, it has become a very, very difficult matrix as to how you can find the right slot for a European fantasy film, what is the right date so that you are not killed by competition, because when you're releasing a European film and you have, I don't know, you have Lord of the Rings or Avatar or a huge US blockbuster, you are completely vanished and killed. We try to find the right dating, that is, taking into account the fact that we don't have that much of a flexibility because we just have this 1 month window from the US release to make sure that we can achieve as many admissions as possible. Delays mean that you're going to have the film pirated for sure, and it's going to be out there in a bad quality, but unfortunately people watch it even in a bad quality. But we are big believers in the theatrical release and in the genre of fantasy films, because these seem to be the ones that keep the audience coming. For the biggest, the right now admissions-wise release, one of the biggest, let's say, was Poor Things, which did something like 500,000 admissions in Greece only. So The Joker, again, it reached something like 700,000 admissions. And we see that out of the top 20s or even top 50s of the total of films being released, this category, the fantasy genre, with all its subgenres, has taken around 78% of the total admissions performed. So it's a strong genre. It's a very promising genre for the European films as well. But the challenges are there, and we keep fighting. Again, I think the problem and the challenge here has to do more with the fact that we have a different distribution landscape compared to the past, and the competition from the studios is much more severe, and that's the reason why we have a polarized, I would say, market, whereas either you really make it and you have a huge success, or you completely flop. There's no middle ground anymore. This category of films doing around 100,000 admissions is not there anymore. You either do something more than 200,000 admissions, or you're less than 50,000, 30,000 admissions, and you go down from there. We as a company, we release a lot of Greek films, not only the obvious blockbuster ones, but also the more art house ones. Fantasy films are a lot into this category, and I must say that although we did a push marketing-wise, although we have secured a good circuit, the results were not at all encouraging. We did something like 1,000 admissions for films like Norvegia or Minore, which were, let's say, the latest fantasy films of the Greek production. So I don't want to be pessimistic because I'm on this business for many years now, and as I said, I'm sure we will find again the way to bring people, or to at least sustain these 7.5 million people that still go to the theaters. And I will end by saying that fantasy films help us towards this direction, because this is the genre that people and young people still like a lot.
Thank you, Irini. So, Giorgio, let's see from your experience and your job as a director mostly, what do you think about what we are talking?
Ok, sorry for my English, just one moment. Allora, mi ripeti bene la domanda?
Voglio sapere qual è la tua opinione appunto sulla distribuzione del cinema di genere.
In Italia o in generale?
You want to speak about Italy? Speak about Italy.
Ok.
That's your...
In generale credo che in questo momento, soprattutto, lo dico in italiano, poi mi aiuterà.
You are going to translate.
Apparently.
We didn't know that.
Neither did I.
Ok, sorry.
That's fine.
In questo momento credo che i film di genere vadano molto più purtroppo sulle piattaforme che al cinema, almeno in Italia è così.
In Italy, the genre films don't go to the movies. I mean, they don't get released theatrically. They go directly on digital platforms.
Ma credo che sia un problema mondiale sotto questo profilo.
It's a global issue.
Soprattutto per i film indipendenti.
Especially for independent movies.
Anche se poi ci sono dei casi molto rari, tipo Terrifier, che fanno milioni al cinema.
And then we have cases like Terrifier that are like unique and they make millions at the
in Italia ha fatto 3 milioni e mezzo, una cosa impressionante.
In Italy, the last Terrifier made more than 3.5 million euros at the box office, which is an exceptional result.
Il mio film, che è stato prodotto per esempio da Sky Television, ha fatto neanche 100.000 euro.
And his last movie, which was produced by Sky TV, hasn't even achieved didn't do more than 100,000 euros at the box office.
Però è stato un buon successo, diciamo, su Sky, ecco, quindi questo.
But he went very well on Sky TV.
This is my opinion.
Vuoi aggiungere qualcos'altro? Parlare in generale dell'industria, del genere?
L'industria sì, assolutamente. Il cinema di genere credo che sia forse l'horror, la fantascienza, ma soprattutto l'horror. In questo momento credo che rappresenti il 70% della produzione, si può dire, indipendente mondiale, perché fare film horror è sicuramente più semplice rispetto a produrre un film d'azione, che chiaramente ha costi ben diversi.
He believes that genre films like horror, thrillers, science fiction are more or less represent more or less 70% of the global film production, at least independently, and which means that there's a huge audience out there.
Credo sinceramente che, per esempio, l'Italia, che ha avuto una grande tradizione nel cinema horror, oggi sta ritornando a produrre. Il problema è che credo lo facciamo nel modo sbagliato, perché non li giriamo più in inglese, ma in italiano.
And Italy, who has a good history of producing genre films, especially horror films in the 80s, is slowly going back to making more of these movies, but the mistake that they make is that they tend to shoot their films in Italian and not in English, so their market is limited.
Soprattutto perché questa è una cosa imposta dalle piattaforme.
Mostly because the digital platforms impose the use of the Italian language.
E questo rende difficile chiaramente l'esportazione del prodotto, mentre una volta venivano fatti in inglese. Però c'è una grande attenzione dal pubblico, soprattutto da quello più giovane.
And this makes it more difficult for international sales, because as you know, as she certainly knows, buyers tend to buy English language movies, but at least there's some kind of a return to the production of genre films.
And what's really your experience as a film director, pushing your films in the market?
Quindi
La tua esperienza come regista, spingendo i tuoi film nel mercato, che tipo di difficoltà trovi?
principalmente il problema è sempre, diciamo, la star. I film si vendono, poi lo dirà meglio Loris, ma i film si vendono principalmente perché c'è un attore importante che chiaramente aiuta la vendita. nei miei film, tranne un action con Dolph Lundgren che ho fatto, che si è venduto ovunque, piccoli paesi, molto l'Italia.
The biggest problem that filmmakers like Giorgio have to confront is that the distributors require them to bring in a star, a big name, to make the sales easier. And his only experience with like big actors is had Dolph Lundgren. He made a couple of the films with Dolph Lundgren, and in those cases his films got better released. I mean, they reached wide audiences.
Però Almost Dead, per esempio, che è un film di 10 anni fa, in Redbox, che è un sistema di noleggio DVD in America, per esempio, all'epoca andò benissimo, fece oltre $150.000, che per un film piccolo è un risultato.
And he made a film about 10 years ago called Almost Dead, which did particularly well on Redbox, which is a US
Yes,
home video
yes.
Yeah.
box.
That he went well.
Yes, went very well.
Okay. Thank you, Giorgio.
Sorry for
No problem.
Actually, his English is better than what he says. He's just shy, just a bit shy.
So, I give the microphone to my friend Loris Kersey to continue.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I'd like to point out the fact that what really disappoints me in general is the fact that I blame the school system. I understand that there's like, how many film schools do you have in Athens?
Four
Okay.
main.
4 main film schools in Athens. So you have people who pay to study filmmaking. And what exactly is their motivation? Mine is a rhetorical question. I really know the answer to that question. I'm saying this because I spoke to a bunch of students the other day, and they all have, I want to tell my story, and I think I have things to tell. Frankly, the world doesn't give a shit about what they want to tell. These people should be told that the ultimate reason why we make movies is that people have to watch them. We have to get to an audience. So they completely ignore the fact that, and it shows today, I understand that students were invited to this session in which we're talking about distributing the film. If you don't distribute a film, nobody will ever know that you made a film, and it's very unlikely that you'll make another one. So this is what I always try to convey when I talk to filmmakers, and I say it's really not about what you think of your story. It's really about what the audience thinks. And before you get to that audience, there are a lot of passages, meaning you have to get to a producer who believes that the film will find an audience. Then this producer will have to go to a sales agent who believes that there's going to be a buyer interested in buying your film. And then we have to go, the sales agent goes to the buyer. And then the buyer has to go back home and find a theatrical release, find cinemas, find a digital platform, and then it gets to an audience. So between you and the audience, there are 5 passages. And this is what people don't really seem to understand. The reason why we make movies, if we want to keep making movies, is that we have to get to an audience, any kind of audience, whether it's people sitting in front of a TV or actually buying a ticket and going to the movies. So I think that the very first thing that should be taught in schools is not how you tell a story, but what kind of story are you going to tell that finds a niche in the market. And that to me is the most important thing about filmmaking. As a producer, I've made like a lot of films. One thing that I've learned is that I'm never going to make a film that doesn't have an audience somewhere. And this is, I'm not saying that it's maths, but it's much easier, or you run less risks if you know that there's an audience for your film, whether it's in Greece or in New Zealand or in Afghanistan. So you always have to find a story that has a niche somewhere. And this is the main difference why between like we're actually talking about fantasy movies in a festival that does art movies. So there's a completely different approach to what kind of film you're making. I make mostly genre films. I've never made a film for festivals because I have to make a living, and the people who work with me have to make a living as well. They have to pay the bills. They have to be able to travel, eat well, and so because of this, I always made sure that the films that I produce go somewhere, get their money back.
And again, this is an approach that most filmmakers, most young filmmakers in countries like Greece or even Italy don't have. I mean, their motivation is, we want to tell our story. As I said before, the world really doesn't give a shit about your story unless your story is important to them, is important to us as an audience. And I know that it's difficult for a filmmaker to hear this, but we have to understand that there's a lot of work and a lot of money that goes into your story. That it involves a lot of people, whether it's public money, where it's very difficult in countries like ours to get to access public money, or even private investors. Why would a private investor come to you and give you his money if your story then is not going to be listened to or read or watched in those major territories that bring the money back? We're talking about the US, the UK, France, Germany, those territories that pay better. And so I always try to convey this, even with Giorgio, who's a filmmaker, and he comes to me with ideas, and I say, well, I don't think this is going to work, and I think this is going to work. And that's because I do my homework, which I believe producers should do. I go to film markets, I talk to sales companies, I ask them what is selling, where is it selling, why is it selling? And so these to me are three key elements that I need to know. Then, of course, we're going to making the film, and if we're good, we'll make a good film that will respond to market requirements. If we are not good, then we'll make a shitty film, and that's our fault. So basically, what I wanted to say, on this occasion, as I said, I'm a little bit disappointed to find out that filmmakers are not interested in this aspect, which they really should be, is that, the distribution part, and this is why she makes more money than we do, because she just goes out and chooses. She picks the films and she says, this is going to work for this guy who lives in Califea, and this is not going to work for this other guy. So she has that. We have to try and think what's going to work in 1 year, because we start writing the story today, our film is going to be released 1 year from today. And 1 year from today, things could be extremely different. There's going to be another war, and there's going to be Terrifier who comes out and changes the genre, meaning that everybody's going to make those kind of movies. So it's really difficult for us to understand what's going to work in a year. It's much easier for her because she can easily wait, and in 1 year from today she'll go and see, and she'll go and pick the movie that she thinks will work for theaters today.
Yes, but Loris, what do you think, to go back to the main issue of our conversation?
That is the main issue.
Yes, no, I mean, your experience, not only your thoughts that they are valuable, of course, but your experience as a film producer in fantasy films. What difficulties you have in European distribution, not generally speaking, to US or Asia or platforms? What do you think, how difficult do you think you can have a film from Balkans or from Italy, from Spain? I want you to share with us the difficulties you have.
Well, one thing that I have learned since we're talking about genre films is that if you're making a horror movie, say, don't shoot it in Greek, shoot it in English. Try to get actors that are believable, meaning that are, if you're telling a Greek story, the story has to be told in Greek. There's no way that you can tell, because it's not believable. Your characters need to speak Greek if you're telling a Greek story. But then you think, how many people speak Greek in the world? That's my first question. The second question is, how many people watch films with subtitles in the world? Yes. The third question is, you don't dub a Greek film. As you don't dub an Italian film. It doesn't work. I mean, you can see it. So then you're not your story is not believable. If they start seeing that the actor is actually saying something else, the audience, you're going to lose your audience. But before
like
you lose
dynasty in Turkey.
I guess. I mean, there's so many examples. This is one mistake that Italians and Spanish people used to make at the beginning, and now when they shoot a genre film, they either do it in Italian, which is limited to Italy only, but Italy is still 60 million people, so
60 million.
You still have a decent market. But otherwise, you have to get American actors or British actors to, in the movie.
Or it could be in Spanish, because Latin territory is more.
Spain is the only case, because they have an entire continent that speaks Spanish. Yes. So for them, it's obviously different and it's easier. But otherwise, you have to shoot a horror film in English. I mean, if you don't sell the US, the rest of the territories will pay very little money. So if you know you're selling America and she goes to Mark, she goes to Cannes, and she goes to VMI worldwide, and she goes. So is the film going to be distributed in the U.S.? No. Well, wait. You have good actors. The film is in English. It's a genre film, and you don't. If you don't have a U.S. buyer, I'm not going to buy a film. I mean, you know, the U.S. is still the lead market. It's what 52%. Yeah. So it's like huge. So if you don't sell a film there, especially this kind of movies, you don't really sell. So we have to think, okay, so we have to give them American actors, or at least stories that appeal to Americans. The usual like concept is to put an American in danger in another place. So you take him out of his comfort zone, and you send him to Greece, and he gets into trouble. And that's something that the Americans really like, because you know it helps them to remember that they shouldn't travel, they have to stay home, and because that's what Americans. It's true. Americans are very simple people.
Isolated in.
If you send them, there's a lot of great stories. I mean, a lot of horror films, you know, of Americans traveling and they get into trouble, and this is something that the Americans really like, and we've kind of used this. So when we make, especially me, when I make my own films, I always take 2 or 3 Americans and I send them to horrible places, and the audience loves that. I mean, you know, it reminds them, oh, let's stay home, because otherwise we go to Serbia, they're going to fuck us. So this is one of the rules that we've learned to respect, and in fact, it works. I mean, it really works. If you put an Italian in trouble in Serbia, it's fine. You know, Italians are mafiosi; they'll find their way out somehow. But the Americans are like, they're naive, so they get into trouble. And this is something that it's a cliche that still works.
Did you have can you share with us an experience of one film that got great success?
Yes.
And one that was the disaster in order you could not approach with the result of the film, you could not approach the distributor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's like, I think they've just made the right choices. All the films that I have made, although small, we all managed to sell. I mean, we managed to sell them like almost everywhere. But I remember 2 particular cases. One, I did a film called Night World in 2017, and we sold it to Netflix North America. We sold it after we made it, and it did very, very well. VMI, that you know them, they sold I think 40 territories. So we got a lot of good money back, and you know the film was not more than 600,000 euros. It was a small movie, but we had Robert Englund, who's still a decent name for horror films, and Jason London. These are good names for the genre. I think we told a good story, and we shot it in Bulgaria. And once again, we took this American, and we took him to Bulgaria, and he went. Lots of horrible things happened, and I think it worked mostly because of that. But then I did this other movie in Cyprus, and there were a lot of people who wanted to have their say in their movie. In particular, the lead actress, who was the wife of the guy who was investing in the film. So she kind of put up a lot of rules that we had to respect in order to be able to look nice on screen.
Russians in Cyprus.
Russians in Cyprus.
We know the story.
Yeah, we know the story. Yes. It's a Russian story in Cyprus. Yes. So that in the end, although I keep warning them and I say, look, this is not going to work. And in the end, it took us a lot of time. We had to go in the editing room 5 or 6 times, try to fix the mistakes, or at least the bad acting that we had in the film. And from the beginning that you're walking into disaster, and it was a disaster. But then I made this other movie. There was released in theaters here in Greece this year. It's called Damaged. But we had Samuel Jackson, we had Vincent Cassel, and did we get a theatrical release in the U.S.? No. And you would think, if you have Samuel Jackson in a film, how can it not be released in theaters in the U.S.? Because it's a bad film.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So you have to, there's a lot of things that you take into account when you start preparing the film, and you think, this is easily going to work. It's genre. Samuel Jackson is the lead. It cannot not work. Well, it didn't work. So, there's some things are really unpredictable. But at least, we got our money back. The film did pretty well in sales. It went out in cinemas in countries like Greece, Italy, but not in the U.S. And if you don't go out theatrically in the U.S., you don't go out theatrically anywhere.
I believe we understand that Loris has something that is very unique. Even if he is a producer of the film, he's very honest to say that this is a bad film that I produce. And this is a very rare case.
Oh yes, I mean, you know, we have to be very honest with, at least in these cases. Then, of course, if I have to pitch a film, when I make a movie and I go pitch a film, I have to say the best possible things about the movie. But then in the end, you know, sit down with somebody like her, and she watches the film, and I can understand that the film is not working, you know, from a body language. And then I have to admit, yeah, it's a piece of shit. I mean, you know, it doesn't work. It's a fact.
But this is something that, as a culture, as a film culture, as an industry worldwide, we should start talking honestly. Not only because my friend Loris told that, but I think it's a start. It's a start to making good films by being honest. What's good and what's bad. I mean, not in the perspective only of the audience, but itself as a film language. Somebody has to tell a story, no matter if it is a genre film, a comedy, or a drama. This story should be unique, first of all, in my opinion. Is there a unique story to be told? Maybe in the way you are using your elements. But the honestly is a very rare word.
It's not easy.
Huh?
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
And the reason I said that you know, distribution is sometimes misunderstood is A, because you know what? We don't make more money than you do.
Okay.
A.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I know that the grass is always greener at the other side, but we as distributors, we invest on minimum guarantees when we acquire a film much in advance. We nowadays don't have the luxury to screen first and then decide whether we're going to buy it. Nowadays, we have to commit ourselves because of the severe competition that there is out there on a script basis, and sometimes not even on a script basis. You just have the log line, and usually there's either a star director or star talent that is attached, and you have to decide on a very pressing film festival, Cannes, Berlin, where you have dozens of meetings on a daily basis. You have to decide whether you're going to spend 100,000 euros, 200,000 euros on a film, much before having the opportunity to see something. And then you watch it, and either you're happy that you made this commitment, or you cry because you know you're going to lose money. But to be able to lose less, you have to decide, how should I release it? Should I spend on advertising a lot so that I can push it and have what we call a hit and run case of release? We're going to fool the audience, and they're going to come first week, and then everybody is going to have a bad word of mouth, and we won't have a sustaining. But we will be able, A, to uplift it to a theatrical film, because when we then sell to TV stations or to platforms, if you don't have a theatrical release, then automatically the film is considered as a secondary or non-important or non-commercial. So there is what we call a theatrical uplift, where films that shouldn't be released theatrical are released just to be nominated as theatrical and get this, notion that when the other buyers from the other platforms come in, they will think that it was a film worthwhile watching on a TV. Now the marketing spend again is a lot, because to do that you must have at least 50,000 euros to 150,000 euros marketing spend. So we end up with an investment of something like 300,000 euros per film, a commercial film, that, guess what, we don't have for more than 10 years. You're gonna have your IP as a producer for eternity, for whatever. So if there's a comeback of the genre, or if you can have repeated sales, you're gonna have some time probably to minimize your loss or get more profit. We don't. We have a very short time period left for us to make the money and the investment back. And just to say on the honesty issue and talking about the my Greek experience with Greek talent, Greek producers, and Greek directors, is that when there's a success, this is by all means due to the great film, to the director, and the great production. When the film is not successful, then the fault is because the distributor
They blame you.
didn't have the right circuit, didn't secure enough screens, or didn't sustain it a lot, or didn't spend on it, which is a very, very awkward and very stressful position for us, because when we invest, let's say, if not only money but time, because when you have the talent in your office every day for a year, when you buy the film or you decide that you're going to release it, we have meetings with them, creative meetings again and again and again. So for us, it's much more difficult and time-consuming to release a film of a first-comer Greek director than a Scorsese or a Coppola film, for obvious reasons. He's there, he loves his baby, he wants to make sure that we do everything correctly. So we spend all that time and all that money trying to make the best out of it, because we don't have to. I mean, we're not obliged to release it. Since we are on board, it means that we saw something, or we believed in the talent, or we want to invest on that. So we're gonna anyway do whatever we need to do to make it successful. And then it's upsetting when people don't like the film, because yes, even as you very well said, when I watch the film, I know if it's a shitty film that won't have any chance, but I have to do my best. The same way you're doing when you're pitching to buyers, I have to do the same thing as a distributor. I have to deceive the audience and make sure that the message is that, guys, you watch this, it's worth watching. I'm gonna do my best, but then the director and the producer usually blames the distributor, which is unfair. And when you are talking about results and numbers, the numbers are self-explanatory. There's no way for an exhibitor who's done 3 admissions during the weekend, and I'm speaking with actual numbers here, 3 admissions, and you have your director and the producer Monday morning say, why don't you keep a screen? Why don't you keep, say, because not even your relatives, not even, don't you have a family, don't you have a friendship, friends that will come during the first weekend? For God's sake, how can I say to an exhibitor that has dozens of options to keep a film that did 10 admissions during the weekend?
But Irini, you're talking about your company that invests and supports.
Yeah.
There are other companies. That's why we cannot judge with the criteria, let's say, all the distributors are not the same. There are distributors that they are taking, we know the system, they were taking the films in order to get the
subsidy.
Yes, the subsidy. So I can understand people that they are fighting, give all their lives in distribution, their money to have this opinion, but at the same time, we have seen monsters behavior in the distribution in Greece. Okay. Now, if the panel has finished their statements, let's see if we have any question or anybody wants to say something. Yes. Υπάρχει κάποιο μικρόφωνο ή να δώσουμε ένα?
No, I can speak loudly.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, yeah, very well.
Okay.
Thank you. My question is for all of you. My name is Despina Hararamos. We have just finished, we are filmmakers, a sci-fi film in Greek, just in a few days ago. So we are starting exploring this thing about sales and so on. My question is for you, Mrs. Venido, about how much, which is the role of the festivals in your distributing policy. And I have a little objection, I'm not sure, about you because we did a couple of shorts in English, we had problems with actors because we cannot bring the money is not that much in Greece, so you could bring, let's say, 20 actors who speak fluently English, because Greek people don't really speak English well. It's the kind of,
Yeah,
the
you're right,
language
yes.
that
The accent.
work very well
Yes.
with English.
Yeah.
They don't have this pronunciation. And there's another reason, because when we started this odyssey, because it took us about 4 years to finish, because of the money, you understand, it's a film with a lot of VFX, and in a way, English-speaking European films, especially from the Balkans, really look like Nuboyana films, if you understand what I'm trying to say. They don't look like art house films, because actually in our country, the most successful in both films are the art house films, because we don't have the budgets to make big productions, and there are only just one company that makes big production, but it's only for the Greek audience. And if we need to go, let's say, a little bit outside of our country, because there are not many people who speak Greek, we know that, as Italian. So, in a way, Greek films speaking English, for my opinion, would look like Nuboyana films, and will not have any success abroad. That's my opinion. I'm not at all sure if it is true.
She will answer your first question.
And that's
Yeah.
why
I'm
our
glad to
film,
answer your
which was
second.
a bit philosophical, doing a lot to do about Greece and so allegorically, it's a sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that it was better to make it in Greek.
Okay, I will answer the first question regarding the film festivals and the distribution. It all depends on what kind of film and what kind of festivals we're talking about. So if it is an art house, critically acclaimed film, that's going to benefit from a film festival career. If you go to the big ones, if you manage to go into Berlin, Cannes, Venice, and then of course it's very difficult. Or the secondary ones, San Sebastian and Locarno, and all, let's say the kind of well-known festivals.
The genre festivals?
And the genre festivals, yes, but these don't necessarily mean and are not translatable to admissions. So the only festivals that really make a difference for a distributor are the big ones, where the general audience will know. If we're talking about a niche festival, the genre dedicated festivals, the general audience, they don't know. We have this, unfortunately, all of us, we live in a small world, and all the people outside us, they don't. If you ask someone which day of the week new films are being released, they don't know. They don't know if it's a Sunday, a Saturday, or Monday, or Thursday, which is the case. People don't know. People don't work around this industry on a daily basis. They don't wake up and sleep at night with that in their mind. So unless we're talking about a dedicated audience that follows, and they're film buffers, and they are fans who know, which is a very small niche market, all the rest don't make any difference. The reason although I mentioned film festivals before, is because for some films, this is the only way to make some alternative revenues for the producer, not the distributor. There are people dedicated to take showrunners that take the film and take it to from festival to festival, and they get some festival fees. Yes, small fees. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? To the gentleman over there, do you work in sporting? Yes, of course. That's my favorite cinema in Athens. I have to say that. Okay. Sporting in Smyrni.
Yes.
I go there every weekend. So,
I
Thank you.
something about the language.
yeah. I have two answers for you. One is on the festival. She was talking about festivals. For genre films, the festivals mean absolutely zero. So when filmmakers come to me and they say, "Oh, my festival was in Sitges, in Fantastic Fest, in Fantasport," means zero. For sales, it means zero, because the audiences that attend these festivals are like, you have 500, 600 people watching that film, and the director says, "Oh, they were enthusiastic." It still doesn't mean anything. So those films don't bring us any money as to the producers. They don't bring us those festivals. We don't get money from festivals. In fact, when you submit a film, we have to pay. So there's a big difference. And also, putting all those labels on the poster, meaning you went to this, again, the buyer doesn't really care. He's going to say, I need to watch this film first. And he watches the film, and if it doesn't work for him, no festival in the world is going to change that. Also, I have a question for all of you. Which film won the Cannes Film Festival this year? The Cannes Film Festival. Okay, exactly.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, I asked what film won the Cannes Film Festival this year? Yeah, exactly. Thank you for. When I ask this question, nobody knows. Exactly. Yes, of course. Yes. I mean, I know, but I usually, when I ask this question, it tells you a lot about the importance of festivals. Me winning Cannes, yeah, sure, it brings you like, people will notice you and they will say, "Okay, let's go and take a look at this." It doesn't mean that you're going to be released worldwide. It doesn't mean that. And we're talking about the biggest festival in the world.
Even in the competition program, not only awards.
We're talking about the film that won the Cannes Film Festival. Usually people don't remember. And that's the biggest festival in the world. So for me, the importance, especially for genre films, the importance of film fest is irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. Back to your question about the language, I'm going to tell you a story that will answer your question somehow. I was in the US some years ago, and I was on the set of a big movie called New Year's Eve. It had Michelle Pfeiffer, it had a lot of big, Robert De Niro was in it. It had a lot of actors, and it was produced by a good friend of mine. So we had dinner together, and I pitched him a movie that I wanted to make. I was a bit naive back then. And he said, "So what is the budget of this film?" It was a $2 million film, which for Americans it's nothing. It's an ultra low budget movie. And he said, "Okay, how much of this money are you spending above the line?" And I said, "Well, $600,000. Don't do it." I mean, if you don't spend 50% of your money above the line, then do another film. So that answers your question. If you don't have actors who speak a believable English, don't do it. Just do not do it, because it's not going to work.
That's why
Yeah. Why would Greek people speak English between themselves? It makes no sense at all. Unless if you're setting the film in the US and it's a genre film, then you have to get American actors, because otherwise it's just not going to work. It's like you're going to a doctor and say, "Every time I touch myself here, it hurts." Well, don't touch yourself. So the thing is that don't make that kind of movie. Make another film.
But we have a genre film, a short genre film that acquired first prize at San Diego Comic Con. It's science fiction. I don't remember the title now.
Yeah.
So, you don't mean that genre films don't get prizes?
No, I didn't say that.
No.
No, I did not
He's
say that.
referring to the distribution of
I mean,
the film,
for a producer, the film festivals don't mean anything.
Only
For a producer of genre films, I mean.
only that somebody from sales agent and distributors seen online, if they are not there online, the catalog, as Irini said, the log line, the title, and the poster, and said, "Okay, I'm going to communicate with the guy. Let's have a screener." Only that, nothing else. Believe me, after 10 films, I know what is going on. I had one experience like that for my film Exile, from an Italian-American distributor, that he found the film in Fantasporto, and he approached me. He asked me if the film is free of rights. It was at that time. I sent him a screener, and he took the film. Actually, it's my most successful film because he put it in Amazon Prime and in 5 platforms. But I didn't know the guy. He approached me by the title, the poster, and the log line. He approached me, and then he asked to see the film. It's the only thing you can find in festivals. If it is not the 3 biggest, as Laurie said, maybe also Sundance. Yes.
But I would like to ask you a question now, since you're here. So you were saying before that sometimes you have
the microphone.
Sometimes you have a very limited time to decide whether you're going to pre-buy a film because there's a lot of competitors. But you do that only for films with Brad Pitt, directed by Lanthimos. That's what I'm saying. You don't sit down and think, oh, I have this independent film that came in. It's a beautiful script. You're not going to do that. You'll wait for the film to be finished.
It depends. What we are trying to do as a company is definitely read the script. So we may have to read the 3 scripts overnight during the festival and understand a bit about the story and how we read it as a script. Then we go back and see who's the producers and check him out. What has he done before? And we have an Excel that our chief financial officer has provided us with because we all get what I call the frenziness of a festival. When we go to a festival and there are so many meetings and so many films and so many sales agents, and there are some films that at some point during the festival get a great buzz and you want to get it, and then you do that, and then you go back to your office and say, why did I buy this one? Why the fuck did I buy this one? Nobody's gonna watch it, because when you return back home, there's no such thing as the buzz of the festival. You're grounded to your day-to-day life. So what we've done, in order to make sure that we are not emotionally
touched by a film.
Yes, numbers come. So we have a great Excel where we put alternative MGs, and we say if we buy this film for 50,000 euros as an MG, let's see 4 scenarios. If it does 10,000 admissions, 30,000 admissions, 50,000 admissions, which is the disaster, the average, and the best case scenario. And automatically, this Excel of ours does all the calculations from statistics that we have, and the admissions that we write down automatically write numbers like how much the marketing would be, how much we can expect from TV sales, from pay TV, free TV, streamers, and there's a bottom line. Usually it's red. Usually it says that if you do this and you pay such an MG, you're a loss of 10,000 euros, of 5,000 euros, or you're a break even. So when we put our feelings and our knowledge and our statistics together, this is when we make the decision. There are always exceptions. There are films that we get sometimes they're infatuated with, and there is an instinct that says I have to get this film. I definitely have to get this film. And we get it because we have this instinct that it's going to work. Does this happen? 50% yes, 50% no. And there was a great distributor whom I very much respect, and she had told me she's a Swiss distributor. She has now retired, and because I was very upset sometimes by films that I didn't manage to get because there was a severe competition with other Greek distributors, she had told me, Irini, you should only be upset for films that you bought, never for films that you didn't buy. And she's very, very correct, because having known the amount of MGs that competition has given to acquire these films that I didn't, and seen the results that these films have done, I most of the time say, thank God I was saved, thank God I didn't get that film, thank God I was saved. Every Monday, my team and I, we have this, not every Monday, because Monday is a tough day, it's where we do the booking, every Thursday actually, we have this internal meeting where we analyze the market. what happened, what worked, what didn't work, why did it work, why it didn't work. And we're trying to get wiser and try not to repeat the same mistakes or try to imitate a good case from a competitor. And we always do this aftermath for acquisitions, either ours or acquisitions of our competitors. We know approximately the EMGs that were given, and we see the results, and we count the losses, how much the loss will be. And the numbers are really, really frightening. So it's a combination, to answer your question, of must have, this instinct, but mainly numbers. Numbers.
Oh yeah, numbers
Yeah,
count.
yeah.
There's one other thing that I would like to add, although this is probably not the best place to say this. You usually have to say these things when you have people who are making movies. Like, I have a lot of, like being myself a film producer, I have a lot of people who come to me and send me their ideas, their stories, their scripts. And the reason why I don't take any of them is that I know better. It's not because I think I'm a better filmmaker, I just know better. Because as I said, I do my homework, I go around, I see what sells and why. And so what I do is I come back with an idea, with a story that I think will tick all the boxes, and then I bring it to a good screenwriter. So I don't need ideas. We really don't. It's sad to say, but I don't need scripts, I don't need ideas. What I do need is somebody like you to tell me, oh, this is gonna sell, this is not gonna sell. And this is, as sad as it might seem, this I think is a good lesson that film students should really understand and learn.
It's an absolute. I totally disagree
Of course
with you.
you have to disagree. You're a
Totally disagree,
filmmaker.
but it's not a place here
You're
for
of
me
course not.
that
You're a
I
filmmaker.
invite you to disagree, because idea is first of all a good idea. In your genre also a good idea, because otherwise we are going to make films with cliché.
Yeah, we have to.
Not
No,
only
but
cliché,
we
because
have to, not you.
no, because
producers have to.
unique films are going to sail, not cliché. Cliché they are boring, in my opinion.
No, of course. But look, even when you say unique film, yes.
In which stage of the in a project do you take care of the concept? I mean, if I am a scriptwriter,
Yes.
I find you.
Yes.
Can I share my idea and my script with you?
What you can do.
People who know my audience from the very beginning, and to build a teamwork in order to have success when I make a movie.
It's a good question.
In which stage, according to your question, to your statement, in which stage of the
Πιο σιγά, παιδιά.
of the film you are interested?
From the first word in your pitch, from the first word first of all, one thing that I have to say, I studied filmmaking in the US, and I was lucky to have Robert Zemeckis as one of my teachers. So the first thing that he told when he first entered class was that if you're not able to tell your film in 30 seconds, you don't have a film,
Of course.
or you're not a storyteller.
It is called the elevator pitch.
Thank you.
That's
Of course,
terminology.
of course, this is for sure
Exactly.
for everybody.
Yeah.
From art house, from very commercial,
Exactly.
this is for sure.
So that's one thing that you have to learn. So if we sit together and you're telling me your story, and 1 minute has passed and you're still at page 5, of course I will lose interest. It has to be something extremely catchy that I say, oh wow, wait, I want to know more.
Now you are returning my words, my friend.
Yes, I know, but as I said, I've been through so many of these meetings, and in the end I always get out and think, oh my God, maybe I should start writing stories myself, which I had to start doing, because when I was listening to other people, of course I'm sure your stories are fantastic, but I was listening to other people, and in the end I was thinking, well, we're never going to be able to sell this. So I have to find something that from the first word in the script, or at least in the pitch, has to have like sales potential. Because if it doesn't have that, then I cannot risk I never put up anything, but I cannot risk the other people's money, because then I will never be able to make films again. So I need to make sure that whatever I'm making has a market and gets its money back. Since I don't have access to public funds, so I can only get minimum guarantees or private investing or cash rebates. That's the only way that I can finance movies. So the money has to come back.
So to make a conclusion, it's a combination of, it's not an absolute thing. It's a combination of a guy that can uses the money with respect, a guy that has unique ideas, a distributor that can take all this in a strategic plan in order to sell the film. So if a combination of unique ideas, good production, good distribution, which is a rare thing, rare for big productions also, this is what we ask everybody. It's not just respect only the money or a unique idea or art house or cliche. It's a combination of making everybody his job. His job is the director to know how to move his camera and to be very secure on set that he is going to do his job with the actors and his shots. And to be respected as a producer from the director and the director from the producer, because this relationship is bringing the film on screening. This relationship.
No, but I still think that without Irini here, we don't exist.
But Irini should be first. It's the opposite than what we do in Greece. First, it's the first pitching should be with Irini, not with you. In my opinion, you as a producer with Irini, I mean. Okay.
I would never send you to pitch a film to Irini. Not you as
Why?
Vasil. No, wait. No.
Why? I have success in that.
Wait. Because you're a lovely person, but not you, Vasilis. You director. I would never send a director to Irini to pitch a film. First of all, it would take you forever. And then she gets bored and she wants to leave because she needs to know from me how do I intend to put this thing together.
Yes, of course.
She's not interested in finding out what cameras you're shooting or you're
Yes,
using.
because sometimes we mix, because in Greece it's very common the director to be a producer also. That's why this is a big problem, a very big problem. You have at the same time to criticize yourself. It's like IANOS, as we are here, IANOS. Two faces.
Now, there's a reason why in this industry the roles are very specific. It's a chain reaction. We need each other. There's no way we can work without each other. But there are specific roles for each one, and we need, as you very well said, respect that and make the right moves with the right people and the right discussions.
Exactly.
And yes, there's no magic recipe, because sometimes you may have all that, but at the end of the day, for some reasons, the audience didn't get it. It was about timing, it was whatever. And there are cases like Terrifier 3, which came out of nowhere. Terrifier 1 and 2, nobody knew. It's a crap film.
It is.
It is.
I agree.
And it's doing millions. And then you get your, what am I doing? Am I choosing the right films? Am I producing the right films? Where the money comes? So there are always exceptions, but the truth is, and I very well agree, it might not seem poetic, it might sound a bit more practical than talent wishes, but the truth is that we need to find an audience. There's no way in doing producing or making content unless there are some people who are willing to screen it and watch it in theaters, in a platform, or wherever else.
Yes, because it's a new era. It's a new era about the distribution with the platforms. Now it's totally new. We have to work with different options of distribution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At least in Italy, we see things done. It's very difficult to think the way you talk. I can understand something big because I don't belong to the industry. I'm just a moviegoer. At least in Italy, we see things done. I was amazed to see a new Diabolique film. Yes, last year, I think. And it had a sequel as well. Here in Greece, we don't have the producers to be interested in making genre films.
We have, and we made, but people didn't want to watch it. No, I mean,
Molto lo sistemo io questo.
I know, I've
È un film
spoke to them.
orribilissimo.
They're interested only to be the new Theodoros Angelopoulos or the new Padelis Moulas.
No. We
no, there
we
are-
have young. It's not true because we have Norvegia.
We had Minore. We had Minore.
Όχι, για φάνταση μιλάμε, γι' αυτό.
Yes, but there are also in sci-fi.
Yes, there were, but they were huge flops. I released both of them, and we tried to do innovative midnight screenings, events targeted to young people, and these were films that when they were shown in festivals, it was sold out. Everyone was there clapping and great. But when these films had to compete with what we call the commercial circuit, you didn't go that weekend to watch it. You and whoever else is interested in the fantasy films. So we only have one shot. That's the problem with theatrical distribution. Every Thursday, we either laugh or cry. We know from the Thursday's admissions the lifetime admissions of the film that we've released. There's no way that you can go back and say, okay, I'm going to adjust my marketing campaign. I'm going to somehow fix this next week. No, there's one day, Thursday, and the weekend, where everything is at stake. So we release them with a very decent marketing campaign for the genre. We're talking about these 10 admissions and 50 admissions that I was saying before.
So you think this is the only problem? Isn't that the problem that such films in Greece don't have a real fantasy scenario?
To me, they had a fantasy scenario. The reason I released them because I personally saw something in them. I mean, they were more cult, maybe.
Okay, no doubt about
There were more art house fantasy films for sure.
Yeah.
Not mainstream art house, mainstream fantasy films, but I obviously saw something in them. I liked it. I personally enjoyed them. Like this year's Substance, if you've watched it, which is a film that had a very schizophrenic, let's say, approach from both the critics and the audience. Some people loved it and they were enthusiastic, and some others were really saying that this is the worst film that they have ever seen. But it did something like 50,000 admissions. Of course, Demi Moore was on board. Yeah, okay, but there were other films with Demi Moore that didn't perform. It had an edgy subject, a very edgy direction, and there was a fuss, and people wanted to have a look and have an opinion of their own.
But are we in the position to make here, well, mainstream, quotations mainstream? We have only to do art house fantasy films like Minore, which was good, of course, but it hadn't a real scenario, a script about the genre.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if
We
there's.
have a rich culture here in Greece. We can do anything, and we have the talent.
No, I disagree that it's a matter of. Of course, we have a rich culture, but we don't have. Very few directors are specialized in doing fantasy films. We have better fantasy films in sorts. In sorts, we have presents included, not excluded. But the problem is, in my opinion, if we want to have, it should be a very low budget film with great idea, like the one we were talking yesterday, the other day, πώς το λέγανε το φιλμ αυτό,
Ελληνικό.
Όχι το αμερικάνικο, the film that we were talking, the horror film that was sold from the distributor to and he make a lot of money. Πώς το λέγανε το φιλμ, παιδιά, αυτό το φοβερό, που δεν έδειχνε το πρόβλημα, ήταν όλο πάνω σε ένα φόβο και η κάμερα, που ήταν σχεδόν ερασιτεχνική. It was like an amateur film.
Paranormal Activity?
No, before.
Όχι, το
Το Blair Witch Project. Το Blair Witch Project είναι τυπικό παράδειγμα φιλμ που εστίχησε. I'm speaking in Greek. That was how much it costs?
The Blair Witch Project, like $70,000.
$70,000, and it make
about 100 million.
100 million. This is the only solution for small countries. We cannot beat the Americans or the Spanish people in the way they are doing things. In my opinion, we should think differently in this kind, because other if we have money, of course, from abroad or make co-productions, we can make a big film.
It doesn't have to be the most expensive digital effects. We have digital effects and digital effects. It doesn't have to be that.
But how you are going to do something,
The Minore director, who is a guy who is doing the VFX for the Guillermo del Toro films, Pencil Everything and Everything, he did it for his own film. He offered his knowledge and his specialized. So for me,
Like the Alacusi.
yes, like the Alacusi, but since he was the director, he offered his talent gratis for free. He didn't, increase the budget. So it wasn't a matter of the effects on Minore. It was probably the matter of the story. People didn't
the
get
story,
it.
the scenario.
The scenario. So it all depends on the script. It all depends on how, if it's going to click. Blair Witch
According to my opinion, the
is an
script
exception.
has to be a little more mainstream in order to have a real genre. I like and other things, but it has to be a little more mainstream here in Greece.
2 days ago, in FIPRESI conference in Greek American Union, the Polish film critic, a guy from Poland, said something very, very interesting I want to share with you. He said that there is now something on the film market that until there's now going something on the film market that until now we didn't recognize it. People are watching the worst films as an amusement, as an entertainment. They are on purpose. They are watching bad movies as an acting, as scenario, because they think they are going to amuse themselves through that experience. And I had a shock because I could not believe that that society is going so bad that somebody is going to see something obvious, as you said,
They
shitty.
even vote.
Guilty pleasures.
They even vote for bad guys.
Yes, but on purpose it is bad, and on purpose they see it as bad and as an amusement. And υπάρχει κίνημα ολόκληρο αυτή τη στιγμή.
Can I answer one quick before we close?
Yes.
One about Italian cinema.
Yes.
So Giorgio and I are Italian, as you know. And you mentioned the Italians are doing it well, right?
Yes.
Let me tell you why they're not.
You are making great movies.
We're not. I'll tell you why.
We have
Well,
stopped in the 60s, as many here think, not in this room.
no, but we're talking about today's cinema, right? Okay. So last year, Italy produced 350 movies. That's a lot of films. Like that's 350 movies is like
Features.
feature films. Yeah, feature
Yes.
films. That's like more than 10 a month. No, actually, what am I saying?
No,
More
300.
than 30 a month.
30 months.
30 films every month produced on the Italian ground. So How many of these 350 movies were distributed? 100. How many got their money back? 6. Now make your numbers. I'll tell you why they're producing 350 movies.
No, 80 was released, you said.
Yeah, I mean, less
80,
than
less
100.
than less than 100.
6 films got their money back.
In Italy or worldwide?
No,
No,
in
in
Italy.
Italy.
Italian films don't sell outside of Italy, with a few exceptions, like the Napolitan guy, I can't remember his name, Sorrentino. Like, there's only like 2 or 3,
Garone.
Garrone, yeah, like 2 or 3
Garrone,
that actually sell outside of Italy. But the main reason why you should ask yourself, and I'm not, I can say this because I'm Italian, the main reason why we make so many movies is that there's the government pays for them. You know, then Italy gives you a 40% tax rebate, plus you have the regional funds. So what the Italian producers are very good at is they inflate their invoices. So a film that costs 1 million euros ends up costing invoice about 10 million. And that money, the money that the government puts in, never goes on the screen. It goes into the producers' pockets. Right now, they are, the Italian government is going after these producers because they lost about 400 million euros, which is tax money, on films that never actually happened. So the Italian industry right now is governed by thieves.
The door of jails are opening.
And it has nothing to do with, nobody cares about art, nobody cares about the message, nobody cares about what kind of film you're making, with a few exceptions, as we said. Those people are mostly interested in putting money in their pockets.
Oh.
And this, it's a catastrophic situation.
Absolutely.
Still you're doing things.
But we don't want to do things that way. The reason why I don't work in Italy is because of that.
I mean, you said about Matteo Garrone.
Yeah,
Wonderful Pinocchio.
Oh yeah,
I
there's,
just love this.
of course, but so did I. But we are talking about like a handful of filmmakers in a country of 60 million people. And that's what disturbs me as an Italian. So we have to go, we now have to make my films, I have to go elsewhere to make movies. I
Yes,
cannot-
and imagine in a country that for 4 decades were the best films ever, from the time of Rossellini, from Rossellini 1946, 47, 47, until Elio Petri. We are talking about 4 decades. These guys were the greatest, not only in Europe, one of the greatest industry with producers top, directors, one better than the other, actors, musicians. This, in my opinion, I love their cinema. I'm so fan of them. And now Loris is describing what is going on.
Catastrophe.
Exactly.
Very catastrophe.
Well, we have 2 Italians telling their experience. So
We're not a good example. Spain is a good example.
Spain, yes, Spain.
And France.
And France,
come on,
they
we're
are
talking about the biggest market in Europe.
in my opinion,
yeah.
France are more idealistic in some things than Spain are more open. Spanish cinema.
The French are doing a great job in distributing
Exactly.
their content.
Exactly.
They defend their content very well.
Exactly. I'm referring to the film themselves.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
Yes, but the Spanish cinema is, but of course they have the language that helps them all Latin America.
No doubt.
So, εάν δεν υπάρχει τίποτα άλλο,
Let me make
Yes.
just add after some say like 10-15 years of experience with Western and science fiction that besides the people present in this room, besides this kind of respect for fantasy, just to make the turn back to fantasy, I would add that having experienced originally this prejudice against it in Greece, be it funding, be it producing, be it festivals, be it distributing. And when I speak about prejudice, I mean that mainstream and not being respected as
It was a big category, yes, yes.
political, not being treated with respect. But later on, I should argue that this was a general approach, not only Greek. I would argue that this was sort of worldwide, also in Europe, everywhere. So the rhetorical or actual question to this would be, does this mentality, does this approach remain, or has it changed? I haven't put an answer, but yours.
I don't think there was something orchestrated as a ban of the genre. It all has to do with the kind of project we're talking about. To me, Poor Things, of course, with the budget of Searchlight embracing this whole unique universe that Lanthimos did, shows that even this category of fantasy, art house, mainstream films is there. And there is a comeback, I believe, because young people are much into the fantasy films. They like it, but they've been educated to like it through huge, big budget films like the Hollywood studios do. So if we're talking about Greece, the only film that I remember many, many years ago was To Kako.
Yes.
That was the only attempt of let's say, a mainstream Greek genre movie that somehow made it to the theaters.
Όχι, λέει με κριτήρια συγκεκριμένα μιλάει.
Yes. But commercially speaking, how much did that do, τα σημάδια της νύχτας? Nobody...
And it's 40 years before.
Yeah.
Έτσι, με σημάδια της νύχτας.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy genre. Yeah, so it's...
But no, you are referring to the quality.
Yeah.
She's referring of the last 15 years,
Yeah.
10, 15 years, and by the perspective of distribution.
And admissions. So the only genre films that have made it to the screen are genre art house films. And unfortunately, even these didn't manage to perform the top, let's say, admissions of an art house Greek film, because an art house Greek film may do 20,000 admissions, 15.
It's the 30, I think it's the limit.
Yes, 30 is the limit.
With if we remember Dogtooth, put the limit of 30,000.
It did more after the Oscar. I mean, we did
Imagine the most successful art house film. This is the situation. We have to accept it. We have to accept.
The Academy Awards or the Greek Academy Award, they usually make 10 to 5 to 10.
Yeah, I mean, there is a problem there. There's too much.
The Greek film, I think there is a big problem. Even the Greek.
But we have to accept what Irini said before, the alternative way of distribution. Some films are just for platforms. It's not a bad thing to put the film straight to a platform. It's a kind of distribution. In the old times, we said this film is for DVD, straight to DVD. That doesn't mean it could be a big success. It could be a big success, but it's an alternative way. Because for all of us, I think cinema is theaters. Until the last one will be closed, becoming a supermarket, unfortunately. So let's be optimistic. Thank you for being with us today. Panorama is still on the road. We have good movies, and see you on a theater near you, as the Americans said.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.